Hey everyone, Jen Lee with Lawyer Success Network, aka Rebel Esquire, and I had quite a few questions that came up on our my Building a Bankruptcy Course live workshop that's coming up. So I thought I would do a Q&A with some of those questions and talk through some of the modules, the things that have changed in the live workshop versus the recording of it, and all kinds of things. Um, and so let's jump into some of those things. So the original course was 4 years ago. I'll preface that. The original course was launched 4 years ago at the beginning of COVID, where everyone thought bankruptcy would be booming, um, and it not necessarily did. It didn't boom at all. And so that's what kind of kept the course. We had some great participation, but it kind of died off because bankruptcies had been so slow. So bankruptcy is now back up and increasing, and it's a great time to add bankruptcy. So that is why I'm doing a live workshop. So Q&A. This is the question that I get most often, even back then and still now. What does the bankruptcy market look like? An idea of potential demand. And so right now, the bankruptcy filings I have increased. They are still low compared to where they were before the pandemic, but they definitely are on an increased swing. We're seeing a lot of people who either had small businesses or they had received some kind of assistance and are not receiving that assistance anymore. And then with cost of living and interest rates going up as well, that is putting an extra pinch on people. So financial stress is at an all-time high, consumer debt's at an all-time high, and being in a position to help people with that is, first of all, great that you can help people, because that's, as a bankruptcy attorney, that's kind of what we do. But there's also the ability to take advantage of opportunities in the marketplace. So demand's going up. Lots of different changes have happened with AI and things like that. The other question I get a lot, and this was a question that someone had sent me in a message and said, "Aren't bankruptcy clients broke? How can you make any money doing this? Um, why why would I want to add bankruptcy to practice here? No one can pay me." Um, so when I was a new lawyer, I just practiced bankruptcy law, and people would protest having to pay for a consult, which did charge for consults when I was in private practice. And one person would say, "I'm filing bankruptcy. I can't afford to pay your fees." And other lawyers have said they had the same problem with bankruptcy practice. However, there are you can overcome these objections, and the way you set up your model, the way you set up your business can very much influence how profitable your practice is. I tend to charge more than my local competitors. We had a lot of tools that we used with our clients, did a lot of add-on things that we did. And a lot of people do free consults, and you can do it either way. My course is not about telling you that you have to do it one way. It's giving you the options out there. But I did charge for consults. And I think overcoming those objections and working through your business model before you launch is a great idea. And bankruptcy clients aren't broke. Bankruptcy clients have a resource allocation problem, and they need your expertise to tell them how to allocate their resources and ways that they can't think of because they're overwhelmed with financial stress. So, no, bankruptcy clients aren't broke. There are some out there that would qualify for like free pro bono legal aid services, but there are a lot of in between as well. They're not broke, but you should charge for your services. Keeping on the money thing seems like a common question or common topic with some of my stuff is the startup cost. And of course, startup costs for any law firm or a practice area, you're going to have your continuing education. You have to get up to speed on bankruptcy law. I would highly recommend joining NACPA, which I spelled wrong on this. I think I copied and pasted this from the question, but I still should have fixed it. Sorry. NACPA is the National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys. Highly recommend joining. Even if you don't add bankruptcy as your practice area right now, NACPA's fees, annual fees are really, really reasonable. And there's so much great information there. You can learn even in other practice areas, just knowing how bankruptcy affects your practice area. Other startup costs. So this person said, since the startup costs would include a website and software, other initial startup costs. Um, yeah, there are some. I mean, you can go as low as you want, as high as you want. You can bootstrap this and start very on the low end and come up with good resources and develop your own things. Or you could put a lot of money into it and have the website designs and all of the automations built. So in the course, we have a whole section on startup costs and kind of the range of where you can go with that. But most of it's going to be your bankruptcy software and any educational things that you want to do. NACPA, again, highly recommend. There are a couple other organizations, but NACPA is the one that I would join first. And then just the typical things that come with running a law firm. You want to make sure that you have accounting together. You want to make sure you have client management software or something, a system set up. So again, you can go very, very deep with it and you can still do it correctly on cheap. You're just going to be spending more time either doing it yourself or working on that design yourself. So startup costs tend to be on the lower side. Bankruptcy software, I go through all of them in the course and talk about different options. They have changed in the 4 years since I launched the course. And so I'm really excited to do that part of the live workshop because we can go through and talk about the changes that have happened. More cloud software is out there. Some of them have gone away. Some of them have better tools than others. I will say that there's no one software out there that's perfect. They all have pros and cons. And so that's what we'll go through in that module. So, what software do I recommend? I don't usually just make blanket recommendations. A lot of it depends on software, your preferences, how your law firm is set up, whether you're a Mac or a PC office. So those are considerations we'll talk to you and talk about in the live class on October 4th and 5th. And some of it depends as well. If you're adding bankruptcy to your practice, so you already have things set up, you may be able to easily use things that you already have in place and just customize them to add the bankruptcy workflow to it. If you're talking about specific bankruptcy software, there are several good options out there. I actually don't recommend anyone over the other, like all the time, but I will give you pros and cons of the ones that are out there and which ones I prefer. I go back and forth between a couple, depending on tools and quirks and new features available. So I will say I'm not afraid to change software, and so sometimes people are afraid to switch to new software. I will jump back and forth. I am not the software salespeople's best friend because I am not super loyal. So I'll give you the pros and cons of the ones that are out there and if they're usable on Mac or PC because I'm a Mac person. So this is a question that came in about PACER, and PACER is the Public Access to Court Electronic Records is what PACER stands for. In the very first module, I believe we go through signing up for PACER, how to get your admissions. Bankruptcy court, you have to have a separate authority to file cases in bankruptcy court. So we go through that. It doesn't cost anything to sign up for PACER. And so when we go through that, I will recommend that you do that as we're doing the live workshop because it's fairly easy to get signed up for PACER. Each district has training modules out there. And so we'll go through a few of those available training. Some of them require training before you get your live login. Some of them will allow you to file if you file in other districts. So again, we'll talk about how to get set up in PACER. One of the very first parts of the course, we actually talk about all the logistics that you need in order to add bankruptcy. Malpractice pitfall. This person had said that hesitation was adding another area to their practice and the potential for malpractice and keeping up with two practice areas at once. Every area of the law has malpractice pitfalls. I will say that since it's federally based for the most part, it's somewhat uniform, but there's also some state issues that come up when it comes to exemptions and things we'll talk about and how to plan for exemptions. Um, most of the malpractice that I see generally with law firms as I'm working with them is failure to communicate with clients and trust accounting. And so those can be solved in bankruptcy fairly easily with automations. And also, depending on your practice and how you have it set up, you may or may not have a trust account for all payments. If you are doing flat fees, we go through how all the fees work, whether you collect filing fees and they go to a trust account. Those are the areas I tend to see malpractice falling into. Sometimes results may not be what the client wants. We don't have magic wands, but not necessarily malpractice. So, and again, NACPA is a great tool for keeping up with what's going on and new areas that are issue areas and things like that, case law. So, whole discussion of malpractice and how to avoid it. Tools and continuing education. I am a continuing education junkie. I like speaking at continuing education. I like taking continuing education. And if I say NACPA one more time, you'll probably throw things at me. But NACPA, National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys, is the continuing education that I go through first. There are other organizations out there. I go through them in that I think it's a second module on logistics and setup and tools. Other tools, this is where it gets fun for the live workshop. So when we did the original course recording 4 years ago, AI wasn't a thing. ChatGPT wasn't a thing. And so we have added on a section for tools, and some of those tools are AI tools and client automation and communication tools. And I'm really excited to add that in there because if you'll often hear me say, if you hear me speak anywhere, that AI won't replace attorneys, it will only replace attorneys who don't use it. And so if you are thinking, how can I use AI? How do I do it responsibly? How do I use ChatGPT as a bankruptcy attorney? That is an entire section that we've added on to the live workshop. So I'm really excited about that, talking about the tools and education that's out there. Other education that I see, PLI, Practicing Law Institute, has good education. I do a lot of one-off webinars. If you are a member of the Building a Bankruptcy Practice from Start to Finish course, either the live workshop or the recorded version of it, you do get access to additional trainings I've added over the years. So you automatically get access to them in your course once we add them. So, and things like bankruptcy A to Z. I think we did a terminology one. I've done one on dischargeability issues, adversary proceeding, some interesting, like more niche topics. So the actual live workshop and the course itself, we go through basics of chapter 7 and 13 so that you can identify issues and start working on your first few cases. And then you can educate yourself as you go. And honestly, that's how I learned bankruptcy. I read a lot of listservs and I attended a lot of hearings. So the live class is on October 4th and 5th. It is on October 4th is a Friday. It's from 10 to 3 Pacific. And on Saturday from 9 to 2 Pacific. I tried to get a time that would work on both coasts because I have clients on both ends of the United States. It will be recorded and it will be live. We will do a Q&A session at the end of each module that may be recorded as part of the course, but I can choose to cut those out as well. It will be in webinar format, so you won't be seen on the screen. No one will know of your participation, that kind of thing. Because sometimes people don't like to ask questions if they think that it's a silly question, and there's no silly questions. If you enroll by September 1st, which is quickly approaching, you can save $300 off the price of the course. And I did put the link on here. I'll put it in the chat as well. The cost, even if you don't get the $300, is still less than what you should be charging for a single bankruptcy case. So please keep that in mind, that the cost, even if you don't get it in there, by September 1st, the cost is going to be less than you would charge for one bankruptcy case. But if you want to save $300 even off that, register by September 1st. If you are already a member of the Building a Bankruptcy Practice from Start to Finish course, meaning you've purchased the recorded version before, you automatically get free access to the live version on October 4th and 5th. And once the recordings are done, they are going to pop into your login at lawyersuccessnetwork.com and replace the old course, because we're updating everything. Things have changed a lot. So that's the update that's going on there. So definitely enroll if you were interested. If you have questions, feel free to send me questions, because I will definitely do another Q&A as needed with questions. And again, I don't put people's questions or names out there. I don't put any identifying information if you ask a question. So let's keep going. And I hope to see you all then on October 4th and 5th. If you have questions, let me know. Thank you.